Hi, music lovers and fans. Welcome back to the Blind Island. Last week I talked about my favorite reissues of 2021. Now I'm going to go into the next logical step, and that's my favorite releases of this year. 2021 was one of the best years in music that I can remember in recent history. Obviously, last year had a bit of just a lot of delays because of the pandemic. And then the previous couple of years, I just didn't have a lot that really grabbed me. Just maybe a few releases for sure, but not something that was astronomical. This year, it was just a wealth of new material. I had a very hard time tapering it down to 10. So I'm going to start with 5 honorable mentions and then move into my favorite releases of the year. This is in no particular order. They're all beloved for different reasons. So let's get started with the honorable mentions first. First, I'm going to start off with Muriel Grossman. This is Union. She is an Estonian saxophonist who plays a spiritual jazz blended with a soulful atmosphere. This one is incredibly beautiful. The playing on here has a warmth of tonality that you don't hear in a lot of jazz. Definitely pulls from Coltrane's mid 60s period, but not when he starts to really go off into crazy territory, just right in that sweet spot before the intense experimentation. And it's just, she's one of the best saxophonists out there playing today. If you have not listened to Muriel Grossman, do yourself a favor, check her out. She is an amazing talent and you will not regret it. Next, it was really tough for me to leave this out of my top 10 because I listened to this album a ton, but I needed to make a little room, so I put Sven Wonder, Natura Morta. This is another great album from a singular talent out of Denmark. I believe that's, or Sweden. I can't remember where he's located out of. But this man is just doing things in the vein of library jazz funk that most other musicians just aren't touching today. And he continues to play around with those sounds as well as introducing more classical elements into his music. This is a beautiful album. This was the first pressing, but you can pick up copies of this for relatively cheap. And even the first pressings aren't going for insane money yet like his earlier material was. This is a very wonderful library jazz funk influenced record if you're looking to get into that type of genre. Next, again, this one was on my top 10 until the back half of the year really came out with some stellar material, but this is The Exciting Sounds of the Manhand Street Band. Another great instrumental jazz funk release. Think of blaxploitation films and you're kind of getting the sounds that are in here. But it's a little bit more cool. It's not as heavily driven as some of their previous material. I really like the seductive, playful tones that are found on this record. And it's a great place for anybody getting started off here. If you're looking to invite a significant other over, this is the album to throw on. Really, really great. And this was kind of a late in the year discovery, but wow, what an amazing record. And this is Emma Jean Thackeray, Yellow. Again, just tough for me not to even include this on my top 10, but that's just how stacked this year was with amazing releases. This is definitely warranted the descriptions that have been given to it, very similar to Sun Ra, Alice Coltrane, but also elements of P-Funk and fusion of Donald Byrd thrown in there for good measure. This is an incredibly ambitious release, over almost 50 minutes of music, and just truly a light. It really matches the color yellow. It is full of happiness, brightness, and just a beautiful release overall. If you have not given this one a chance, go and treat your ears to a delightful cacophony of sounds with Emma Jean Thackeray's hat, a yellow. And then finally, this one probably broke my heart the most, not to include it on my top 10. But because it was primarily an album of covers, I had to leave it off. And that is Backslider by David Ramirez. Technically an EP of 7 songs. 6 are traditional hymns. 1, I believe, is a song that he wrote himself. But the just way that he does these hymns is so beautiful, so stripped back, and his voice just matches so well. And in times like this, I don't care what side of the spiritual aisle you land across, it's nice to just grab on to something that's bigger than yourself. And I think that this album really just helped carry me through some dark points in the year. And I love the title, Backslider. The idea that, you know, we're all trying, but we oftentimes have ideals and we slide back from them, but we just keep on trying to get back to that place. And this is an amazing, short, sweet record that I would highly recommend if you're into acoustic folk with a spiritual bend. So really, really good. Now on to the top 10 albums of the year, in no particular order. This one has been listed in almost every major magazine, online subscription, and music critics list, and for very good reason. It seems to be the unifier from this year, and that's Floating Points, Pharoah Sanders' Promise. This is also with the London Symphony Orchestra, and this is a meditative, beautiful, lush, gorgeous record, and very ambient. This is going to be an album that unlocks ambient music for a lot of people. Reminds me of some ECM releases that came out in the late 70s, early 80s. But what sets this one apart is the spirituality of Pharoah Sanders, who's playing on here is the most beautiful it's been probably since his playing in the 1970s. Just gorgeous. Nothing about this is commercial, and it literally just brings you to a presence that you haven't been in. I don't know, I just can't remember a release that unified people as much as this album has. So if you haven't listened to this one yet, believe the hype, give it a listen, and go into it with an open mind, recognizing that sometimes it's not about how many notes are played, it's about the space between those notes. And then next, number 9. Again, this is in no particular order, but I'm just doing it for my own edification. This is John Dwyer and various other artists gathered together for an album called Witchfinger. John Dwyer is best known as the frontman for The OCs, and this particular record is one of many that he came out with that was in this Miles Davis-esque dark fusion, where it's just really radical, wild rock jazz. But this is by far the best release that they came out with. Each one kind of had less, it didn't pay off in dividends. This one is explosive, it's wild, it's out there. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. But if you love that Miles Davis 1970s Bitches Brew period, especially Get Up With It and On the Corner, this is going to be a release for you. Just, they hit the tape and played, and an incredible collection of jazz rock right here. So amazing album, one of my very favorites from the year. And then number 8, going with some more instrumental funk music. This is a supergroup bringing together members of the Manhand Street Band, Budos Band, and the Delvin Lamar Organ Trio. This is True Love Sunday Afternoon. This one just has like hook after hook after hook, and it's going to find you grooving and bopping and feeling the music the entire time that you're listening to it. This is an album that is it transcends just instrumental funk. It is a feel-good record for any time. If you're having a bad day, throw this on, and I dare you to keep on feeling bad and not have a smile on. This one comes on beautiful blue vinyl, and again, all of these incredible musicians coming together for a powerful sound. The title track on here was one of my most played songs of the year for very good reason. I just find myself bopping to it all the time. Just treat your ears and listen to this record. Number 7 is a return from the long post-rock, I want to say they're post-rock, but also post-hardcore. I don't know how to say it, what genre these guys are, but this is Thrice's 12th or 11th studio album, Horizons. This is their best release since they decided to come out from their hiatus, and it is strong, it is powerful. There are also moments where it's a lot more experimental. You can definitely hear the influences of bands like Radiohead and The National starting to bleed in. There's definitely playing with elements of jazz and fusion and electronic music on here. And Dustin Kensrue's vocals have aged perfectly. He still is able to get out a nice howl and growl, and it's heavy, but they're not trying to sound like they were when they were younger men. They are maturing, they are changing, and it's in a very good direction. So many great songs on here. The packaging on this release is beautiful. It's in a chroma depth, and it comes with a pair of glasses that literally gives it a three-dimensional look to it. The sound on here is three-dimensional, and the presentation also is. So if you haven't listened to Thrice, or maybe have, said, they're an older band, they don't have much left to say, I was highly impressed by this release, and it just wound up being one of my favorites of the year. All right, and then number 6, we have a group that was mentioned with the True Loves, one of the earliest releases of the year, and wound up being one that I stuck with all year long, and that is Delvin Lamar Organ Trio's I Told You So. This is the one that came on the limited pink vinyl. Very difficult to find now. This is some of the best organ jazz funk that you're going to be listening to today. It is one of those records that, again, just it transports you to a different time, but never feels as though it's pandering to the past. It's definitely has a fresh contemporary sound, and their rendition of Careless Whisper by Wham, whew, that makes that song, that kind of silly song, and turns it into sultry, sexy goodness. This is one of those records that you'll find yourself returning to time and time again. And the guitar playing of Jimmy James on here is incendiary. So give this one a listen if you're looking for something to break you into the world of jazz funk. This is going to definitely open up some doors for you. And I just need to say the packaging on this is incredible. The artwork reminiscent of the classic Blue Note titles, and it's just in a solid gatefold sleeve, hard cover. Definitely takes notes from Impulse. I think that they take every element of every great jazz label from the past and just put it into the material here. So really, really great stuff. Then we have number 5. This is going to be El Michaels Affair, Yeti Season. This one has elements of Turkish world funk. Very cool, and just one of those that's very different. There are some vocals on here. It's all sung in a foreign language. I'm not sure which kind, but this album reminds me a lot of Elton Gunn's earlier releases, but with a little bit more psychedelia thrown in there. This is just a really neat release. If you're looking to kind of get into a more world international sound, this is a great place for you to get started. Again, another early in the year release that wound up sticking with me all throughout 2021, and very, very lucky to have this one in the collection. And a record that was easily my most listened to album of the year. This is number 4, Matt Berry's The Blue Elephant. This is a record that is just full of beautiful, soft psychedelia. Each song bleeds into the next. It lends itself to the vinyl experience. Don't try and listen to this record while streaming, because it just sounds so much better A to B, and hearing how each song literally is a cycle that bleeds into the next one. This is by far Matt Berry's most ambitious, serious attempt at musicianship, and he takes his skills to another level. I've loved all of his releases, but this one is by far my favorite. So really, really good. It was a great summer release, and I'll definitely be returning to it, but it's one that I've gone back to time and time again throughout 2021. And this year, we lost a great talent in Lee Scratch Perry, but not before he left us his final collaboration with New Age Doom. This is Lee Scratch Perry's Guide to the Universe. This is doomy dub with just, it's like a drone jazz record that literally pulsates with rhythm, but at the same time it's a very ambient, slow moving, like a glacier over mountains. This literally will wipe away your conceptions of what a dub record can sound like. Lee Scratch Perry's very spiritual, intense lyrics on here match perfectly with the music, and it is one of those records that's going to definitely become a collector's item. This was only printed on 1,000 units of vinyl, and I would say pick one up now before this becomes a rarity. You can pick copies of this up between $30 and $35 in the US, and do it now before these disappear off the face of the earth. So I would just thank you, Mr. Scratch Perry, for leaving us with one last amazing record before passing. And then number 2, I have, this one was probably the newest one that I discovered this year, and I just can't help it. It just sunk its way into my mind, and now I am just finding myself grooving to it the entire time. It's Amigo the Devil, Born Against. This is for fans of Tom Waits, Leonard Cohen, Colter Wall, and Jason Isbell. But he has this super dark, gothic country music. This is a man who is a nihilist, speaking from a man writing a letter from death row, a father getting revenge for his daughter's murder, speaking about the state of humanity and God being quiet as a rat. The lyricism on here is just compelling. He is writing lyrics that paint pictures that stick into your mind. I love this record. It is one of the best written albums I've heard in a long time. As far as a songwriter is concerned, I haven't been this excited about an album in a very, very long time. So check this record out. Give it a listen if you're into country music, if you're into that kind of strange, carnivalesque folk. This is a place to definitely go. And then finally, another album that I completely stumbled across, but it's not going to be changing the world or changing the way that you hear music, but it's just a lovely little piece of Americana and a little cosmic country thrown in for good measure, and that's Introducing the Pink Stones. This is a brand new band, first release, And I love just the easy breezy, good time feeling of the country music that they're playing on here. It reminds me a bit of the Byrds meets Gene Clark's solo material. Very, very good. I just love, again, it's not one that's going to be shaking the foundations of the musical ground that you walk, but if you're looking for a feel-good release that's going to just be putting a smile on your lips with whimsy, this is an album that will do it every single time. So give the Pink Stones a listen. Alright guys, those were my favorite albums of 2021. What were yours? Let me know in the comments below. And then I'll be rounding out this series with my favorite vinyl finds of the year. As always, I hope that you have a wonderful day on your own personal oasis, and I'll see you soon.